You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Shawn Wilkie, and along with my awesome co-host, we interview the innovators in this space every week. Ivan, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Hi, I'm Ivan Zach, and I'm happy to introduce a colleague and a friend of mine, Dr. Jamie Crittall. So Jamie is going to talk about home delivery for veterinary clients, but a couple things about Jamie. So on the business side, he's a co-founder and senior commercial director of ourvet.shop. He's a co-founder and senior commercial director of VirtualRecall, recently with a successful exit to, I don't recall who was the Pfizer. Zoetis. I'm old enough to call it Pfizer.
So. Yeah. Now that they're completely separate, I think they're a no share sort of sharing. But yeah, absolutely thrilled that back in August they acquired us.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Congratulations on that. He's also owner of the Beach House Veterinary Center. He has a degree of veterinarian.
Bachelor of Veterinary Science, yeah.
From the Bristol University. He also has a fun fact about him that he helped to look after baby chimps in Gorillas in the Mist and went on to become a TV vet. He also enjoys mountain biking in the Surrey Hills. I have a quick question before we jump in just to kind of get us going. Why do you call it mountain biking in England when you only do it in Surrey Hills? Isn't it hills biking?
Ah, very funny, Ivan. Some of them are really steep that realistically we've just had the Tour de France and okay, they're on road bikes and some of the hills that they go up are phenomenally steep. Let's say 14 to 20%. Well, the advantage of doing that on a mountain bike, even in the Surrey Hills, is that some of our hills are that steep. But I'm not claiming to be a Tour de France cyclist. But I do love getting out on the weekend with my mates.
Next year. Now that you've had the exit, you can start training.
But I wanted to say that I was where I was in England. I was in a Lake District, which was a beautiful, beautiful spot. I'm actually finishing school there right now. I'm doing a remote MBA there, and I was there for a week. So it was a beautiful area to visit.
Could you find a more remote place to do an MBA?
It did the trick, so that works.
It's the only place that would take them, Jamie.
Maybe that's it.
Exactly. So congratulations. That's a phenomenal story as any entrepreneur that goes through the exit. We're going to jump into talking about the topic of this delivery for veterinary clients. But you mentioned that you went through the due diligence process. You worked your clinics and starting our vet shop. How is that experience on top of COVID?
Yeah, all of it was done during COVID. So I'm sitting in my home office and I'm a people person. I love interacting with people. So to literally sit on my own and to help steer and make sure team members are okay, that sort of coming up with ideas to actually create our vet.shop from start to at least the minimum viable product and getting our first product delivered within 7 weeks was phenomenal. But trying to, as you say, juggle with those colleagues in 3 different businesses whilst doing due diligence for the acquisition. Yeah, it was juggling, literally going from one Zoom meeting, Teams meeting to WebEx throughout the day and often into some evenings. But yeah, COVID, I would say, has brought people together. It's been an incredible experience, both positive and negative, but it is what it is. I think out of adversity, opportunities come, but also seeing the best of people that, yeah, you've got to pull together. So when I last spoke to you, Shawn, was pre-COVID on a WebEx. Who'd have thought that this would have happened? But yeah, strange times, but for us, it's been really, really good, I would say. But I can't wait to get back to some sort of normality and seeing people sort of physically. It's great seeing you on a video, but actually there's going to be nothing better in my eyes, certainly, the actual sort of physical getting together. And I can't wait for that, but I don't know when it's going to be. What do you think?
Yeah, well, this is, I guess it depends on the country, the second wave, the vaccine, there's so many parts to it. But yeah, I think you're right that it did convert. I look at it as positive. I worked, from my home office, and I do love talking to people and speaking at the conferences. And I do miss that huge part. I think that this conversion to the online conferences, as many as we interviewed here, there was quite a few people that do that. I think they're all doing a phenomenal job, but I personally miss that interaction, just like yourself. And I've seen you speak, and you're such a dynamic speaker. I really appreciated, hearing you talk about the customer care and the client interactions. That last time I heard it was actually no, it was last summer. It was in Austin with the Vet Forum Group. Yeah, so that with so many irons in the fire, for our entrepreneurial listeners, how do you parse the day? How do you prioritize? And is that something that you had a strategy behind? Because when you have several things, how do you switch? That's another thing. So when you go from one business to another thinking, because switching your mind also takes time. So how do you work with that? How do you turn around? Do you have the strategy like sections during the day per initiative, or is just you throw them all together and plow through it?
For me, I don't like things hanging over. So I'm a sort of get it done, get it out the way, move on. So I think, of course, multitasking is really, really important. Just making sure that, well, if you get something wrong, apologize. It clears everything. It sort of really helps in that respect. Apologizing for being late, and then you can move on. But I think if anything came into my email on inbox, and being able to having to manage lots of inboxes, particularly the odd thing, and you've gone through it by selling to a company, it's quite secretive. You can't tell other people, and I'm an open guy, so I found that quite hard. And then having to sort of create a personal email account to deal with all of that. And also being very mindful that you don't want to be dishonest to anybody, but you've still got a day job. Or in my eyes, or in my experience, I had 3 day jobs, so to speak. And communication, ultimately, for anybody, if you can communicate well and make sure you communicate often and appropriately, that goes a long way as well. So juggling, I don't think I've ever been particularly good at multitasking, but ultimately means to an end. And also the need was so important, the outcome almost sort of helps push you across the line.
Fantastic. So I see how you did it. If you had 3 full-time jobs, that's exactly 24 hours a day. So you could accomplish it that way. And the strategy of apologizing, that's Shawn's strategy, because he's a Canadian and he's startup. That's how he gets through success. He just apologizes through it. But let's talk about our vet shop. So is it Chewie? Is it same as Chewie, or you're creating something different?
Ivan, I think that's a brilliant question, and particularly framing it with regards to Chewie. It's definitely not Chewie. I'm a vet. You're a vet. Shawn, you're not a vet. But I think in the bottom of my heart, veterinary hospitals and the teams within veterinary hospitals should be and want to be front and center in caring for their clients and their clients' animals. And they do it absolutely to the best of their ability. And we're good at it. We really, really care. So I felt it was absolutely essential that if we created a home delivery service, it had to be coming from the veterinary hospital. Chewie is there, very good as a fulfillment arm, very good customer service and all of that, but they're there disintermediating the veterinary hospital. And as a company, VirtualRecall, everything that we try to do is enhance animal health and well-being. That's first and foremost. But we also want to improve the customer experience, reduce the administrative work load, and improve that workflow. So we set out to create a home delivery service. And why we called it Our Vet.shop? Absolutely, because it's coming from the veterinary hospital to their clients. but we want to make that customer experience as good, ideally better than Chewie, and keep the veterinary hospital at the center of that relationship, because I think that's where the animals will benefit. The stronger we can make that partnership between owner and vet, the better. So that's how we set out. But we did it through COVID. But it wasn't a new idea. We started investigating home delivery back in 2015. And I think that probably predates Chewie. And we did a lot of market research. Big pharmaceutical companies were interested. Clients were really interested. We put out RFPs, a request for purchase, looking for fulfillment partners. It was a big old process that we went through. And that was throughout 2016. And then in 2017, the beginning of 2017, we thought, right, we need to go to veterinary practices now. And as part of Virtual Recall, we have what we call ambassadors, our best customers who can give us feedback. And we went to them with our proposal. And lo and behold, they said, oh, we don't want that. We want footfall. We don't want to lose margin. And as a result, we were somewhat dumbfounded. But at the same time, timing wasn't right. We needed practices, veterinary hospitals on board to make this almost tripartite agreement work. So we put it into mothballs. Well, roll forward to March 2020. On the 23rd of March in the UK, we went into lockdown. As very kindly you introduced, I have 4 veterinary practices in the UK, and we shut our doors on 3 of them and stripped back, furloughed all of the team bar 2, one of the vets and one of the nurses, literally to be there to deal with emergencies. Our veterinary governing bodies said that we could only do emergencies, but also provide essential emergency drugs. But every single animal under the sun needs to eat. So I've always been a big advocate of recommending good pet food. And we sell a lot of it in our practice. So we were wanting to continue that with preventative medicines, antiparasitics. And as a result, in some ways, it was quite selfish of me to go back to my team at Virtual Recall saying, I think we need to take the idea of home delivery out of mothballs. We really need to get a home delivery solution. And I am so immensely proud of the team. Within 7 weeks from start to finish to having our first product home delivered, setting up the integrations, the partnership agreements, doing the development for the technology, doing the marketing. We even had to change the name of the company once during that process because somebody argued saying it was too close to one of their brands.
Wow.
But we came up with our vet.shop in order to be that inclusive, that a veterinarian can go to their clients and say, you can buy it on our vet.shop. And it's working. So the minimum viable product went live after 7 weeks, and we delivered our first parasiticide. Then we went into food, and then 3 weeks ago, so within 3 months, we'd started delivering sort of therapeutics, chronic medicines. So that has been brilliant. They were 3 of the sort of 4 pillars, 3 channels, so to speak, that we've introduced. But the 4th is a really simple online payment gateway to help practices get clients to pay in a safe, sort of COVID secure way. And it's going really, really well. We need more customers, and we need more clients to know that they can start purchasing things in a really simple, easy, safe way. So we're looking at ways to leverage our other technology, iRecall, to get the message out to clients in order to do simple reordering.
So, Jamie, what a fucking roller coaster you've been on for the last couple of months. It's just incredible. What's next? What does the future look like kind of post-acquisition? What are your major initiatives and what do you want to tell our listeners about?
Well, what's really exciting by becoming part of the Zoetis family, we were acquired by the international side with the remit to become a truly global company, which for Charlie, my business partner, and I was what we always wanted to do. That we'd already created a US subsidiary and an Australian subsidiary, and particularly Australia and New Zealand had gone really, really well. But to break into the States, we knew that we needed an investment. But having sort of internationalized sort of software, the world is our oyster. And now with Zoetis, that is the remit. So we look at waves, and our first wave of geographic expansion, you'll be pleased, Shawn, is to go to Canada.
What a lovely place.
Really delighted. But here's the problem with COVID. Travel is not an option currently. So it's all of this work is done remotely, but I cannot wait to get there. And then into Europe. And well, there's so much going on. Somebody else gets involved and is interested that we keep wanting to expand further and further, but focus is important.
Well, if you ever need any travel tips, Ivan is one of the only person I know that's traveled internationally in the middle of the pandemic.
Well, my passion is skiing. So I've skied in the US, but I've never skied in Canada. So that will be high.
You need to go to Whistler, where they do mountain biking and skiing. During the summer, you can mountain bike, and then during the winter, you can ski.
Well, that is definitely on the bucket list, as is heli skiing. I like powder skiing, and I know the backcountry out there is the place.
Yeah. There's nobody there. It's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. So with the project, as you guys got acquired, so both initiatives were in the same package. Was it Our Vet Shop and the Virtual Recall went together, and now you're developing two initiatives?
Yeah, so Virtual Recall was always the parent company. We set our vet.shop up in March, and even though we were starting our discussions with Zoetis to acquire us, in that time we were then saying, but look, we're doing this home delivery solution, and that cemented the relationship. They're very excited about that.
I would imagine, yeah.
Timing is amazing,
because being able to offer veterinary hospitals a new channel for clients to have convenience, because the one thing we've learned in Virtual Recall and with our iRecall software, sort of the communication platform, the simpler we can make things, the more likely it gets done. And we can apply that to clients. If you take away the effort and the friction to do something and giving them good advice, helping them come down a decision funnel to do something, the easier it is, the better the customer experience it is, the more likely they'll do it. So it's been a fascinating sort of area for us. And actually, it's probably helped us even communicate what we do better. It's funny that our company is called Virtual Recall, but our original software solution, iRecall, is what people knew us for and actually thought, well, who's Virtual Recall? Well, now that we have another technology, our vet.shop, but both really working together, they can be excluding each other, but they certainly work better together. We've now sort of created a better brand sort of hierarchy that Virtual Recall is the company, and we've got these solutions that can help you. Having both helps you even more. But it really does sort of tie in back to our, I suppose, what we're passionate about, and the three core sort of purposes that we set the original company up. And that was improving animal health and well-being. We wouldn't do anything that would contravene that, but also improving workflow and reducing administrative workload. And of course, that was just to do with veterinary hospitals. But now we have so many interactions with clients, it's also trying to make their life easier, make their customer journey when interacting with their veterinarian as simple and as smooth and as wonderful as possible to make that relationship even better. So yeah, it's exciting times, it must be said.
So very
Yeah,
interesting.
it's really, really incredible.
So comes to mind now, not Chewie, but your competitors that you're going to face here. I think they are your competitors, VetSource and Vet's First Choice. I don't know their penetration into Canadian market, but maybe that's the strategic reason why you're going there. How do you position yourself against those two?
Again, they're, I would say, outsourcing, but on behalf of the vet. And I think even from a sort of business model, monetizing it, the client, yes, is paying our vet.shop, but that all of that less costs goes to the veterinary hospital. It's not like the client buying from VetSource or Vet's First Choice, Covetrus, and they're paying them and the veterinary hospital makes a cut of it. So yes, I can see that they will be competitors, but at the same time, the lovely thing about those two companies and our vet.shop is that we're really trying to keep the veterinarian part and parcel of it. I, of course, would say that I prefer my business model because I think it really keeps the hospital front and center. And our vet.shop is branded for the veterinary hospital using their color palette, all of their logos. Literally, we embed it into their website. So from a client's perspective, oh, this is great. And it makes perfect sense because even from a banking perspective, when they go to pay for something, our vet.shop, if you have a partner and actually you're using the partner pays your credit card, thinking of what that is. Oh, our vet.shop. Oh, no, I know what that is. So we think there's certainly room in the marketplace. And if the three of us can achieve that globally to keep away Chewie, keep Amazon at bay, then I think the veterinary profession and the veterinary industry are going to be in a better position. And that's definitely what we're going to be fighting for.
Well said,
Jamie. That's so awesome. I think we're almost at time, but I want to ask you a question from our listeners' perspective. So Canadian market's coming. We've got listeners in the UK. So what exactly is it? I understand the online shop, but I don't actually understand the virtual recall side. What is it that people would investigate exactly or succinctly if they're an independent veterinarian clinic? Why would they look you up, and then how do they do that?
Thank you. Wonderful question to introduce us. I would go to virtualrecall.com. You can look at iRecall and our vet.shop separately, but we work for veterinary hospitals. We implement, manage, and maintain, and we have these sort of proprietary sort of widgets, data adapters that interrogate a practice management systems database. We don't take data, but as a result, we can identify and we look at these sort of micro moments in which they can communicate with their clients beyond the exam room door. So as a result, helping to educate their clients to do more and look after their pets and horses and farm animals better, but keeping that relationship absolutely coming from the veterinarian. The clients don't know about us. It's all about them and being able to enhance compliance effectively. We have so much research to show that we improve outcomes, which from a hospital owner perspective, we generate more money. From a sort of technician and a veterinarian's perspective, we improve animal health and well-being by having them have their vaccinations on time to maintain their heartworm or their flea or tick preventions at the right time and continuously, and wanting to go back to the hospital in order to have that help. So we understand their challenges. Both Charlie and I are vets, and as I've already said, I own veterinary practices. I understand those challenges. Time is very limited face to face with your clients, but if you could be reaching out at every opportunity that the client wants, they will do more with you. So we make everything very personal, very individual, but also because of making that context so much greater, the clients actually get on board, become more engaged, and do more with their veterinarian.
That's amazing. I see why Zoetis bought you.
Yeah, and you can sell. So, Jamie, I know we're running out of time, but I wanted to touch on this. What I'm seeing right now in technology market, and it's very interesting that companies that weren't in technology are really stepping into this part. So, the vet source with the pet vet to pet, they sort of partner up, and there's more development there. They have, they had one product, now they're more developing as a technology company. MWI partnering out with and acquiring Allied DVM and developing further technology. And then Zoetis, they had other technology, but now they stepped into lab space. They acquired Zen Labs. They now have their Abaxis. Now they're adding technology arm. So is this a part of that strategy? And I don't know how much you can disclose, but are you becoming that tech lead sort of for Zoetis, and then you're going to kind of gather other technology in that same group? Are you playing a role in that strategic part of Zoetis technological advancement?
I think it's a lot of these companies, and you've explained and described several there. From Zoetis's perspective, I think having companies that produce very good products, and okay, Zoetis make a huge gamut of fantastic drugs. By going into the lab space, it gives them more opportunities to work with veterinarians to do better. So we became very aligned on that. And they even created a separate business unit for us. So Charlie and I have become senior directors of digital practice services, because it is really important that we make sure that clients come on board and understand manufacturers are pretty much a business to business model, whereas they're producing products for consumers but don't really have a lot of interaction. And I think by bringing virtual recall into the Zoetis stable has really enabled them to help influence, but via the veterinary hospital. And so that's why we're so aligned. The veterinary hospital is the center, the heart of that relationship. And if we can help get more clients on board to look after their pets better by being more engaged and an enhanced relationship with their veterinary hospital, well, then Zoetis will do better. Virtual recall will do better. It's a win-win-win for everybody, ultimately, to improve animal health and well-being.
Geez, Jamie, I don't even own a vet hospital, but I want to go buy a vet hospital so I can buy virtual recall. You're just so passionate. It's so awesome. This was so much fun, but we're way out of time, so we gotta wrap this up. So we got a couple questions for you. First, what's an inspiring guy like you read to get inspiration from? Have you seen something, read something lately that you'd recommend to our listeners?
I am listening to the podcast before. A lot of people talk about TED Talks or business or books to make you better. I have to say, I read books to relax me. They're pretty trashy. I've always loved Scott Mariani, particularly the Ben Hope series. He's an ex-SAS officer. So really sort of rugged, just escapism. But I'd have to say my favorite book ever is I Am Pilgrim by Terry Hayes. If you've never read it, it is awesome. And not being a great reader, when somebody recommended it to me and I came across the smallest font and about 900 odd pages, I thought, I'm never going to read it. I think I read it within about 5 days. I was hooked. But if you were to push me for a business book, and it was one of my clients in my veterinary practice who became a real sort of mentor of mine, called The Effective Director. And he was a giant of the corporate board. And it really helped me, I would say, have a better understanding of running a board, having effective directors and being focused, and why board meetings are so important. And it was slightly ironic. he'd noticed that I'd changed my veterinary hospital from a partnership to a limited company. And he asked, why did you do that? And I went, oh, well, it was what my accountants recommended from a sort of taxation point of view. And his face just literally dropped. And he said, you don't know what I do. And I went, no, as far as I'm concerned, you're a chum and a wonderful dog owner. And he said, I want to give you something. And he gave me this book. I read it and I was very embarrassed, but he wasn't meaning to embarrass me. It was just understanding that a corporate organization can be so much more effective if run effectively, and using all of the, I suppose, the processes, and particularly having a good board. So I'd really recommend that. It's by a lovely man, very sadly he's passed away, called Neville Bain. So that would be a business recommendation for any sort of budding people out there wanting to get more from their companies. Put a good board in place, have a read of The Effective Director, and then you can go and read I Am Pilgrim and have a swashbuckling time.
Excellent. So with that, our second question that we always ask, do you know any other entrepreneur that we should have on this podcast?
How long a list? The wonderful thing for me in this industry is the vets who've sort of gone out and done different things. So probably I would say Rob Dawson. He had an amazing practice, which he sold, almost became the flagship of one of the corporates here. And he's set up a company called Vet AI. He's using artificial intelligence to be able to effectively help those unmedicalized patients or the owners who don't go to their vet be able to access really smart, good, genuine, honest healthcare at the point of need and steer them in the appropriate way. So I think he's brilliant. And the other person, and I had to go through all of your podcasts because I'd been mentioning ones that you're already there. The two Julien from Vetstoria, awesome. Yeah. I would say Tom Jenkins, Pets App, but you've had him. But somebody you haven't had, Steve Jocelyn, VetDB. He's using microchips in the most amazing way to be able to transfer data and have sort of almost open access in a really secure way using blockchain. I've no idea what blockchain is, but I've only ever heard it's very secure. And he's another amazing vet turned innovator, turned entrepreneur. Another person, Victoria Johnston. She is Vet CT, being able to get CT and imaging to the masses on demand, making use of specialists. So some brilliant people.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinarynnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.